Okay, hello. It looks like you need help making particles. So, this is a Maya scene. It is a brand new scene, nothing inside of it. Usually it defaults to your modeling tools up here on the top left, which we're all familiar with, and we should be familiar with navigating inside Maya. However, in order to make some particles, we need to make an emitter. So before we do that, we don't have the ability to create a particle system within our modeling tool set. So we can either go to your little FX tab here and have a few options for creating some objects. However, right now I will just go over to the top left to the pull down menu, go to FX, and now I have a whole new tool set up here, and I can click on N particles, and I can go down to Emit and Create Emitter. We're not going to mess with the legacy stuff down here. We're just using the new Maya nucleus system. Create emitter. There we go. There's an N, stands for nucleus or N particles, and we have the options over here in our attribute editor. And currently my timeline is from 1 to 200. I think I did scale it out. Usually it'll start you out maybe at around 100 or 150. But scale that out to 200. You can probably increase it to 300, and then you can click on your time slider here, click and drag out, and that'll increase it from frame 1 to 300. Also, you just want to go to the animation preferences, this little gear with the person here on the lower right hand side. Click on that and make sure you're set to play every frame, and your max playback speed is free here, and it's going to play back every frame. Just make sure that's set correctly and hit save. So when you hit play after creating your emitter, it's going to appear very fast. And the other option I believe we need is this cached playback. I think for now you can just turn that off. And as you can see, if we try to scrub through the timeline, normally it's not going to save your information. Unless you have cached playback toggled on. So if we scrub through, you're going to get a cached, or all your particles are saved within memory here, and you can scrub through the timeline and see your result. So it starts from here and expands outward and just falls into negative y space. Now, these are just little dots emitting from the emitter here. We can change the emitter to a directional emitter, and when we can adjust values on that directional emitter, we can change the emitter to an omni, which is what it was, or a volume box, and you'll have an emitter that's just pumping out little particles there. Looks a little bit better than the omni, and then you can increase the rate per second there. You can adjust some basic properties. We've got up in the in particle shape section here, you've got your life count. If we're at frame 54, there's 220 particles. If we go forward, it's going to increase in number all the way to 300, and we have 1245 particles. And if we go back to frame 1, we have 0 because it has not gone through a frame. If we move 2 frames, you'll see that 4 particles have emitted. We've got your lifespan. If we were to expand the timeline out to like 1,000 frames, these particles would exist forever within that timeline. As you can see here, they're just falling down. So they're living forever, and we can adjust that to a constant, and we can change this. Defaultly it's set to 1 for 1 second. So every second there, the particles will exist. We can change that to 3 seconds, and they'll exist for 3 seconds, and so on. Boop. Okay, and we've got particle size. We can increase the radius of our little particles. However, the particles don't seem to increase. Let's see here. Possibly not until you actually have them with a shape. If we change the shape, we should be able to have the radius or the particle size adjust the shape. So if we go to shading, instead of points, we can actually turn those points into something like sprites or spheres, sprite cards. We'll change it back to spheres. And if we go back up to our radius, we can change the size of those spheres so they will exist as spheres. And then we can go back up to our lifespan, change it back down to 2 seconds. And now those spheres last for 2 seconds. I can grab the emitter here and should be able to translate this up in positive y space. And if I hit play, your particles will cascade down again from that emitter system. So we have our particles that are falling down here. They're not really colliding with anything. If we go to our nucleus system over here, we can go over to our nucleus tab on the left here, click on that. We can click on the use plane here, and it should use our little plane that exists right here. We can actually bring it up, and our nucleus ground plane will exist. And so when the particles hit that object or that ground, they will hit it, stay there, instead of just falling straight through. We can change the life a little bit longer so they kind of exist for a longer period of time on that ground section. So as you can see, they kind of collect right there. Gravity, In the nucleus system, this is where you'll find the gravity and wind properties, the ground plane properties, some more time attributes there. The particle in particle shape is where you'll find the particles themselves, the lifespan, and particle size. You can have some other various attributes turned on, collide, and also self-collide, where they will, instead of just pulling up on each other and intersecting each other, you can have a self-collision on each particle. So now when you hit play, they will just pool and hit each other and kind of slide off and then disappear because we have the lifespan set low. But if we increase the lifespan, they will hit each other, fall out, and sort of roll off based on the ground plane that we have for it. So more on the particle shape here, you can adjust your collider strength there. You can have a bounce to your particles. So they bounce quite a bit when you set it to a value of 1. You can change a friction. You can change the friction value. Let's make that live forever so we can see it. There we go. Okay. Yeah, you can have more friction on the objects. You can have a stickiness established for these particles as well. And you can see the frame cache caching that data. So with the stickiness applied, the particles themselves will actually stick to each other and sort of slide down. You can go back into the nucleus setting. You can change gravity. 9.8 is usually the, well, always the default Earth gravity setting. You can change the wind speed of this nucleus system here. You can change the wind direction, and again, all these properties translate is X, Y, and Z, rotation X, Y, and Z, scale X, Y, and Z. So if you get down to wind direction, you've got X at 1.0 and Y at 0 and Z at 0. If we turn that to 0, they should just fall very square-like. We can change, let's say we change the value. If we slide, okay, so that's positive Z. So if we change our wind direction to a positive z, you'll see a shift. Let's turn the value up high there. Let's create some noise. Wind noise. So not too much of a difference with these specific particles, but it does adjust it a bit. You can see it kind of sliding over. What I can also do is just remove this whole setup here, delete those objects. I can go to my in particles here. I can emit from an object. I can go to that option box panel there. I can call this maybe like a plane emitter, and I can go down to emitter type surface. I can delete my whole emitter system here. And what I could do is I could create a plane object. And I'm going to scale this plane up. I'm going to translate it in positive y space. And in my z rotation, I'm just going to put it at a negative 180 so that my normals are facing down. Maybe increase the height a little bit. Now I can go to my particles, and I can, after creating the object, I can emit from this specific object. What I'll do is I'll just click on the option box here. I've already named a emitter plane emitter. That's what this is. I'm going to emit from this surface, emit from this plane surface, and I'm just going to keep the values the way they are, and I'm just going to hit create. And now we're already at frame 287. You can see the particles emitting from this plane. So it kind of looks like rain is falling. So after that, you can go back into the particle system here under the attribute editor, and you can do the same adjustments that you did on our other emitter system. And I can change the shape. Instead of the points themselves, I can just scroll down to my shading and change it back to spheres. And then I can also have my nucleus, turn the ground plane back on. So now all the particles will collect at the ground plane right here, or I can change that value, raise them up. And now I have all these little spheres collecting on the ground here, like snowballs.